Everybody knows Brad.
Hi, I'm Brad. Yeah, this talk is really, I don't know, it's going to be probably basic for 90% of you, although it might be interesting for the novices. And it's basically, I just want to share a couple of things that weren't intuitive to me when I was 22, and I've picked up along the way. And some of the things might be new here, so but most of it's probably going to be pretty basic, but we'll see how we go. So, yeah, troubleshooting regulation issues. Now I have to use my computer as a remote. Anyway, you guys like flowcharts?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you read it. This would be great if this is the way it worked. If it was as simple as this, you know, all you need in your toolbox was a can of protein and some of that flash CA glue that Graeme had, or I only had it. I've done the Loctite 401, but anyway. We know that it's not necessarily that simple.
Oh, Brad, I just want to take a photo of that before you move on.
Okay. I can send it to you.
This is the best advice I've seen for years.
Well, maybe I can just finish there, couldn't I?
Yeah, finish it.
Yeah.
Who did you get help to, who did you use to help you to make that? Like?
Oh, well, it only took me about 10 minutes. What's that?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I just looked at, how do you make a flowchart? Google, drag this to here and pull that round there, and yeah, it's not perfect, but it took me about 10 minutes to do. Yeah.
I'd just like to point out that that's not detailed enough to pass your exam.
Well, fortunately for me,
You write the exam.
I'll keep that in mind when I resit. This is kind of like, you know, most of us are probably on those, you know, Facebook, piano groups. Some of them are quite professional. Some of them have got some really clever people on them. There was one that kept asking me to join, and I joined it, and it was like piano tuning enthusiasts and electronic keyboard, or something like that. And it's got 40-something thousand members, and I think that should tell you something about how many wannabes is probably on there. And the thing I noticed about those Facebook groups is, you know, like there's people say, oh, how do you do this? What do I do when this is happening? And I'll show you a wee video. And sometimes you look at that and you think, really, there's people that don't know that? And then other times you think, oh yeah, actually I'd like to know that as well, you know. So it made me aware that, like, we've all got gaps, right? And so there was that, and then this electronic keyboard and piano tuning enthusiast, hobbyist, you know, wannabes group. Somebody did a video of a hammer bobbling, and somebody said something, someone else said this, and I said, yeah, look, I should first look at the lost motion and then keyed it, you know. And then this other guy got on, and he goes, oh, you shouldn't, or lost motion is not part of tuning, you know. And I had never no, because like if you do the lost motion, you've got to check the blow distance and the key dip, and you've got to do the, well, yeah, but you know, like I've always looked at lost motion when I tune the piano, and sometimes there's problems, and we'll probably get to that, but it just made me realise that probably none in the guild or none in this room, but there are tuners out there that don't do anything. They just tune the piano. They don't look at the big picture. And you know, your client expects, when they ask you to come and tune the piano, they often just, in their mind, you're going to get it playable. You're going to get it so that, you know, and so, and also your client doesn't know the right words to use sometimes when they've got a problem. They know there's a problem, they don't know what to say about it. So you've got to just read between the lines, or between the notes. So I think the session should really be called A Few Simple Things You Can Do to a Worn Out Old Piano to improve your client's quality of life and sense of well-being should they ever choose to play the piano again. but I just decided that that was too long. So
Tuning covers it, mate.
yeah.
Broken pedals and all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. It's all about education, isn't it? Like we've got to constantly be educating ourselves. And I know that like this weekend, there's several conversations I've been in on and listened to, and I thought, I'm actually going to do that from now on. And it doesn't stop. So if your client says there's a few sticking keys, it's not always sticking keys, is it? It's not always actual keys sticking. It could be lots of different things. And so here's what I've learned. If it plays once perfectly, then 100% fail the second time, like hit it twice. Most of us older guys, we know the first place we look is the jack, right? It's either stiff, so it's popped back, and then it's not returning under the hammer butt. And there's two reasons for that. It could be the spring, or it could be stiff and easy. And so that's the first place you look. But if it's not that, it could be a stiff hammer. And for you younger ones, you might not know this. Like, if it's an older piano, a really easy way to find a stiff hammer is, you lift this up a bit, or you just take the weight off, and then you do that. And the stiff hammers will either stay forward or they'll be a little bit slow to return. And also, have a wee look to see if the hammer balance spring is in there and the loop. And if it's a Yamaha, see if the loop's there. And then you start at one end of the chain, like I've started here, so that's fine. Start at one end of the chain, then work your way down. You can see if the whipping's stiff. Now, if it actually is literally a stiff key, you got, they're usually weighted toward the back. Some of them are weighted front ways, but just check there. And also, you'll probably get good at noticing if the key's actually broken, or if and if the key doesn't move freely. It could be the bushing. It could be that front bushing. It could be that somebody's turned this too far, and you don't need to ease it. You just need to loosen it there. And then the other thing that happens are, see if I'm getting ahead of myself. Swollen, swollen key leads. So see Wytze about that. Those of you who don't know, Wytze is working on alternative for lead, so that's what that reference is, and realise that not everybody knows this. Mouse droppings are not your friend. And I suppose we probably all know that mouse droppings are not our friend, but they can sit on, you open the piano up, and if there's mouse droppings on top of the keys here, then you might as well just ask the client if you haven't got one in your bag for a vacuum cleaner straight away. You can get that dealt with. It'd be better for your health.
It's only
But-
mice in the South Island anyway.
What is it? Only mice in the South Island?
That's right.
And there's no cats in America? Right. Okay. We have a few rats in the South Island too. But the key droppings, they fall down between the keys, right? And they jam them. And
Oh, sorry.
Jam them.
I read that the wrong way, jam the mouse dropping.
Yes. The key is jam the mice droppings, yeah. What they do. They do. And so sometimes, you know, you'll go, oh, this one's stiff. And then you lift it out. And then, oh, it's not stiff anymore. And it's because the mouse dropping's fallen down inside. And, you know, your clients will be horrified to know. So, and the other thing is too, you know, faults only, you've got to try the different types of keystroke, like hard, soft. Yep.
You mentioned that in the front, if the key is sticking in the front, that somebody's turned something.
Oh, yeah. So if they've, yes, yeah. So you turn the key pin to, yeah, the key pins are oblong at the front.
Why would you turn that?
To take up the slack.
Yeah.
So
So,
side to side,
yeah.
you can replace the bushing.
Oh, cool. At least somebody's learned something today.
But it's not the correct thing.
It does.
Yeah, you don't. No.
The side
Just
friction.
where's it out?
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Why aren't they that shape? Why can't they be just like that?
But sometimes in some ones are rotated.
I've always wondered why
Yeah.
they do that, like eliminate this problem.
Yeah, so like Stephen's pointed out here that in an ideal world, your bushing should be, the gap in the hole in the bushing should be exactly the same as the width of the key when it's straight. And Stephen says he never turns them, he always rebushes if it's warm. But yeah, there are a lot of technicians out there that will take up the slack, they'll turn it this way or that, just to take up the slack, and you know, and if the name of the piano starts with BEN,
Piano will never play properly for a factory, so
Yeah, and if you find a piano that has been adjusted in dry weather and it's then your middle of winter, your felt swells and it swells toward the pin. You can't go anywhere. So it swells toward the pin, you've got a binding key. So yeah, that stuff can happen.
do you ever check and lift the front of the key up and see if it falls on its own weight?
yeah, I do.
Part of regulation.
Yeah, because sometimes the tightness is actually
Exactly.
in there. Right, yeah. And that's a bit of a...
Easy fix.
Yeah, well sometimes I don't know if I should be doing this, I might get told off, but sometimes I'll just lift it here and go
Oh yes.
like that, and then put it down like that.
Yeah, that worked.
Maybe just block your ears if that's
I'll
wrong.
send the account.
Yeah.
The repair.
Yeah. Right, so Squeaks, Rattles and Clicks, it's also the name of my favourite U2 album. You know, like a squeak is usually a piece of felt that's gotten smooth and is rubbing against something hard. Rattles are usually something hard and loose. And sometimes the collective dampers can squeak. You know about that? So it's very subtle. You often won't hear it on one note, but all the dampers going together. It's the springs and the grooves.
Creaking.
Yeah, creaking. Yeah. Oh, so that comes at the creaks.
Yeah, got to add creak as well.
Oh, so yeah. Right. Oh, I'll fix it later. And pedal squeaks. These are all things that your client might not tell you about, but they're going to expect. And sometimes you get, you know, like if you didn't fix that and you didn't notice it, they're pretty unhappy about it. So loose hammerheads is one thing that has, you know, when I was an apprentice, like, say this hammer here was a bit sort of, you know, like the glue drying. Just say this is a Schwander action, and the glue's dried up, and the hammerhead's actually a little bit loose. But if you grab it, it doesn't feel loose. But when you play it, you hear this knock, 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 knock. And like the first time it happened to me, it took me ages, and finally I grabbed it like at both ends and just wiggled it, and it just popped off. Yeah, and all you need is a drop of glue. Stick it back on, make sure it's straight. So that's something worth knowing. Key parts, lead weights. So this is rattles I'm talking about, so that's why I said lead weights again. the other day there was a lead weight. It was a square one right at the end of the key. You know those ones. And it had just, and it was just, yeah. And it actually took me a while to find it because you know you sort of go like this and it's rattling and I was looking in here and finally pulled the key out and the lead weight just like a drop of CA glue around it, and then I left the key out for 10 minutes because I didn't want another problem of everything being glued together. And so that fixed that. So, you know, whip and bridle wires catching us, that's usually obvious, right? And if a click occurs on the release of a key, it's your, yeah. Oh, this is where I needed my iPhone because I was going to be able to start drawing on the screen. And you guys would have been so impressed. Right in here, the little cushion. And it's so funny because like, when you're playing, if you're doing that and it goes click, you think it's clicked when you hit that one, but actually it's clicked when you let that one go. Because you hit that one at the same time and it gets disorienting. So a click on release is, well, in my experience, every time it's that. It could be something else theoretically, but and you have to take the hammer off. You have to have a little bit of felt in your tool bag, cut a little square, glue it on, put it back in, because that's the sort of thing that your customer would expect to fix but not tell you about. And this is the stuff that I really wanted to get to because let's see if we can make it do it. Yeah. There we go. So it's blubbering, that's what I call it. So obviously I made that happen by, sometimes you'll like, so I've had it where I've fixed it, then the client says, now there's a note that's doing a funny thing. And I'll say, is it this? And I'll get my finger on and stop it on the key slip like this, so that it simulates really shallow, you know, and go, and
Well done.
so I basically put my finger in there like it's a cushion, and just, and they go, oh yeah, that's it, that's the sound, it's awful, what do I do? So I've already fixed it actually, I was just making it happen then. So that's what I do. But obviously, so what we're talking about then is there, that was shallow keyed up that made the blubbering happen, but there are other things as well. So like if you've got tons of lost motion on a
The bill is getting bigger.
what's getting big?
Your bill.
Oh yeah, there we go. Oh well, there's not enough lost motion, but obviously, so lost motion and key dip are kind of almost like two sides of the same coin, right? Because when you've got lost motion, it's effectively sort of similar to having shallow keys, because it's just nothing happens till you get to there, and then you go to there. So in a way, you should look at both those things, and we know that it should be like 9.6 or something at the key. Is that right? But 10, but it can be a little bit deeper, and sometimes on some of these older pianos, a quick way to fix it, just to take one washer out, and you'll find it'll suddenly work. And the reason I say that is that if you're a novice and you're trying to assess failing a problem like this, you might be tempted to go straight to the check, because literally what's happening is the check is bouncing off the back check, and so it's not checking. But that's the symptom actually, really, usually, not the actual cause. And it might be a problem there, but yeah. So, and the other thing about lost motion, is what I really want to talk about, is we should always think about lost motion in a piano, in my opinion. And I do know that there are some pianos that are so bad that if you take all the lost motion up, then you will cause another problem in the piano because it's so bad. And what I'm talking about is if there's tons of wear in the piano, then when you take the lost motion, this whipping is going to be sitting up too high because you've got a gap in here that shouldn't be there, and so you're going to end up with the cheek too far forward, and then the hammer's going to block on the string. So you always got to sort of temper.
And the damper lifting too early.
And the damper lifting, I'm getting to that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. But actually, I might run out of time and not get to it if I keep waffling. But yeah, and the damper lifting too early, so you get all these other problems. So you do have to be careful about it. And but in most situations, in my opinion, if you're not about to recondition this piano, or if it has been reconditioned, like say a few years ago, and now it's, you know, all the felts and leathers have settled, and that's why you've got lost motion. For all those reasons, you will radically improve the feel of the piano, and it's basically a free lunch. You know, you could charge for it if you want to, but you might not have to. You know, because it's like sometimes it just takes literally minutes to fix, and yeah. So, like I say, it does depend on what's worn. So first of all, check the actions properly. Ask me how I know that. You know, I don't know if anybody else has ever done this, but like in the action, sitting up on the mounts a bit.
Yep.
Oh man, look at this lost motion. Yeah. Oh, the action back in now. All the hammers are sitting like. Oh, look at this. I haven't done it for quite a few years. But yeah, checked in the action sitting on its mount. In fact, when I was very young, very, very young and stupid, one time I thought, I don't take up the lost motion. I'll just drop the action down on its mounts. And then in this whole section, only one string was damping. Yeah. So, and other problems as well. Obviously, the hammer's probably only hitting on one string as well. Yeah, don't do that. That's really dumb. But having said that, someone else might have done that. The other day, I actually looked at the piano and all these this whole section, one string wasn't damping properly. The action's sitting too low or high. I can't remember which. And someone said it might be me, maybe. Thinking I was
It's from when you were young and stupid.
No, but
And you got working later on.
yeah, well, that's right. I got a job out of it. So
Got a strictly shit
Just-
taken out.
you know, repositioned the action properly, and it was away, and it fixed other problems as well. So
And that adjustment
Yes.
is actually fractional,
yeah,
because the other day had
Yeah.
to move a piano down some stairs, and we dismantled the
Yeah.
piano completely to
yeah,
get it around the corner. Arms off the piano, keyboard out, floor off, pedals, all this sort of stuff. And we got it down. It was craned in when the building was built. But anyway, got it back here, put it back together, and what did I have to adjust? All the bicol dampers. So there was, and everything went back in the correct holes in the right, what I thought was right
Yeah.
location. There was no registration holes anywhere, so it was a chapel. And so they were just hand built in the factory. So I put it all back together. As it went, legs went in, everything hunky-dory. Put the action in, played it. All the bichord dampers weren't working so well. There's one string. So there's a tiny fraction across, and it was
Right.
fine. So I
Yes.
did that. But
Mm.
it would have been a very small
Yeah.
fractional difference in the keyboard height
yeah.
to cause that.
Well, you know that when you get a ringing bichord on one side, that the amount you have to move it is so tiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
tenth of a millimetre maybe.
Having thought about it, I should have probably just pulled the action cups up a tiny fraction.
Might have been. Might
So
have
you
been.
adjusted the dampers rather than...
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it felt fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so it had moved over a bit when you put it back together.
Yeah. Yeah, and after all that, I thought about it, and I thought, I probably, probably should have just reset the height of the action
Right.
and adjusted the capstans, but
Mm.
that would have probably taken longer than just adjusting the dampers.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
No?
So
piano.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one.
So if you figure out whether it affects the regulation, if it does affect it negatively like that, then you obviously already know by that stage that this piano needs either reconditioned or thrown out, depending on what the first three letters of its brand name are. Hammer blocking on the string and muting. Yeah, you know what that is, obviously. It's either got no escapement. Again, that might have happened after you've taken the loss motion up, because we've got that situation where you've shifted everything. While you're looking, make sure the hammer isn't sitting up. Right, okay, alright. And so if the hammer butts are worn, then that's in a way, so if your hammer butts are worn, if that's where the wear is, then loss motion ends up with the whipping sitting too high, the back check's too far forward, and that's where you're going to get problems. If it's worn under here, this base, obviously, then taking up the loss motion is almost going to bring it back to, it's going to have a less of a negative effect. So, and so the other unintended consequence, as Stephen pointed out, is dampers lifting too early. So you need to work out whether it is the pedal that's wrongly adjusted, or whether it's actually the spoons. Pedal adjusted is obviously always global, unless in case the pedal rod's bent. Whereas a damper's lifting too early individually, that's your spoons. And again, that's an unintended consequence. And I just wanted to say something that I didn't know for years about dampers lifting too early, was that if the damper was working, I never noticed, I just tuned the piano, And then an old tuner pointed out to me, he just played a few chords and he goes, the dampers are lifting too early. Oh, they are too. It actually, you can feel it. And so that's, I don't know if you read my first slide or second one, or once it got past the funny ones, that you need to learn to play a few chords, maybe play a chromatic scale, need to learn to finish a tuning, take off your tuner's hat and put on a musician's hat, and then just forget about the fact that you're a technician and just play it like a musician, because that's when you will notice things like that. Or maybe do that for a minute before you start as well, because you will feel it in the keys. This has a terrible action, and it's like you're doing far too much work every time you play a key. Every time you stroke a key, you're pushing against a spring for 3/4 or 7/8 of the stroke instead of just half of it, and the result is it feels all springy. So learn what that feels like, and so if you discover a piano that's got dampers lifting too early, or if you've taken up the lost motion and that's happened, then just have a wee feel of it, and then try and remember what that feels like. That's my feeling anyway about it.
It can be heavy to play too.
Heavy to play, yeah. That's
often say that.
yeah. That's what I mean. It's like got a springy feel. It's like a real cheap
Yeah.
keyboard,
Yeah.
So radical osmotion just can exacerbate early damper lift. Yeah, that's what I've just said, basically. That's me. I'm done.
Awesome.
coincide with the.
The
Oh,
upright
yeah.
action?
Yep.
Can I just throw it out to the floor, especially for the less experienced techs? I had a scenario of about a 30 or 40-year-old, quite a tall Kauai upright. So the regulation was all in spec, okay? So hammer blow, let off, key dip, all what I would consider fine. But bobbling hammers, not enough aftertouch. Any guesses as to why?
Sorry. What model and how old?
Oh, about 30, 40 years old.
US.
Can't remember the model.
US
It's
50 or
fairly tall. Yeah, not enough aftertouch. So, yeah, bobbling hammers, basically.
Key dip was good.
Jack slap rail? Jack
No, that's fine.
Damper slate rail.
No.
Well, the key dip isn't.
I mean, you know the answer.
Yes. Yep.
Jack stop rail?
Yep, fine.
Are the set-off rails in the wrong place?
No.
Oh, it's the what about that fake leather they used in those pianos?
No, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
So just no after, no aftertouch.
Yeah, not enough. Yep.
Okay. When the
So the butt was getting caught on the jack.
yeah,
basically.
okay.
Yep.
I was about to say, and I think that was something I was going to say about Brad's presentation. That the bobbling, in my experience, is actually the hammer bouncing off the top of the jack.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So when the note has been played, when the note has been played, there should be a gap between the top of the jack and the
Yep.
hammer butt.
Yep.
In my
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And it needs not to be too big, but it
You
needs
need
some.
something.
Needs something,
Yep.
Yeah.
But this piano didn't have that.
So there was clearance there.
No, there wasn't.
So it's a geometry problem.
Yeah.
So it's
They got that extra geometry all wrong.
No.
No. Okay. Well, that.
Had replacement of felts or something? No.
Oh, and the statement was right, obviously.
Was it
a
slippery
back check stuff?
This was for the inexperienced techs, right?
This question is going into the next guild exam.
We're all inexperienced.
No.
There's a pencil. No, I'm just kidding.
These are flexing too much.
Let's have the answer now. Shall we?
Well, butt springs too weak.
No.
It's not working.
Capstan in the wrong place. So on the
Did somebody talk about the set off rail
Yep.
being in the wrong position?
Yeah, but that wasn't it.
It wasn't.
No.
That does happen.
Yeah. I used to deal with that.
You want to know the answer?
Go for it.
What is it?
Yeah, of course.
The butt felt was too thin. So the jack was too far
Ratio.
under the butt.
Oh wow.
So
Oh,
it wasn't
yeah.
coming out far enough.
Yeah.
So I
Ah,
replaced
yeah.
with thicker butt felt and
It cleared it.
So that is actually
And readjust it.
So you mean about
Yeah.
cushions?
yeah,
so we
because it was disappearing too far under the butt.
Because once you replace
And
the
it
butt,
wasn't coming in far enough.
So that would have had an extremely draggy set of Brad.
Yeah.
We got these sticky keys.
Yeah.
I got a
jack
call.
cushion
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sticky keys and everything else.
Yeah.
That was original, I think.
So I go in there and it was the first time I did some of the wild it was sticky. Yeah, you look at the jack position
Oh, sticky. Yeah, they were sticky. Yeah.
That butt was original, you think?
I think so. Yeah. So either it was too compressed or it was borderline to begin with.
Yeah.
So who knows?
So you might have to end up replacing them all.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just
So- For
I
those
just
of you
couldn't
down
fix
the
the
back,
bobbling, and I didn't really want to increase key dip.
we're talking about this butt valve here, and which I talked about the click before, and so it's quite rare. But this was too thin, and so the whole jack was sitting like that. I'm exaggerating, but like that, and so this would have been a bit higher, which would have meant that the escapement would have been in a different place. It would have been adjusted correctly, but you end up with the jack, not out of the road.
Yeah, not travelling far enough. So
And the jack is just here, and so that's where the bouncing is concerned.
Yeah.
Is happening.
How did you figure that out?
He's Stephen.
It's
changed.
it's
It's
much
made
made
it on here.
But you go to the end of a section and look from side view to see what's happening.
Yeah.
I think that's a big clue to look at that gap there.
Yeah.
When you've got issues like that.
That's right.
To find
Yeah.
that it's there, we'll see where the jack is actually ending up.
Yeah.
And the
I thought
ultimate,
when you said the
ultimate
regulation was okay, because if it's bubbling, it's not setting off. The jack's not getting out of the way.
That's right. But the key
So
dip is
regulation
fine.
wasn't-
So I mean, I could have fixed the problem by increasing the key dip, but I didn't want to do that.
Or-
By reducing the
Set.
hammer blow or
Well,
whatever.
Wytze, you found an amazing one in while uprights, key bobbling, and it turned out to be the shape of the inside of the balance hole being too square. And so it meant that it was actually fighting the balance pin.
ah,
And, yeah, and I was like, I would have been there for hours, and you said, no, you found it. I thought,
all the
Nice to
90s,
be in the back.
yeah, the
no,
1980s
it's just,
Korean
you know,
pianos
I
had
just had to
those super tight
read
balance
inside the
pins
balance
from you.
Oh, yeah.
So you push the key down, it was actually springy.
Too thick.
on
You
the
see
Yeah,
bottom of the balance
yeah.
pin.
See that
The
straight
balance
away
pin was going like this.
See that straight
It
away.
was,
when you
yeah,
measure
at the
down
bottom.
weight.
Bottom of the
Because,
hole, yeah.
If there's a problem at the balance, the down weight goes through the roof. If
Yeah.
it goes up, you can see it straight away.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Has anyone been fooled by a drawing pin stuck in the bottom?
How does that happen?
It's a clicking noise.
That's
Oh, you can probably
Yeah, we should finish. Yeah, you're going to have a committee meeting.
That's great.